Hi, Dr. Oslick. Here's my lesson plan. This is an original lesson about Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights era using language arts and social studies integration. This lesson is just an introduction to the topic, and the targeted grade level is 2nd grade. The objectives for the lesson are: students will read 2 fiction texts, students will identify the main idea of a fiction text, students will use inferencing skills to discover and identify characters' feelings and emotions, students will write a letter that asks a question supported by details from the MLK era. The students will be grouped based on partners using Kagan strategies such as think, pair, share. Students will also be working independently. The only whole group instruction they'll receive will be the reading of the text by the teacher. And this lesson will be 3 days long in 40-minute chunks of time. The materials needed are Freedom on the Menu by Carol Boston Weatherford, Child of the Civil Rights Movement by Paula Young Shelton, a pencil, the main idea worksheet, letter format worksheet, the computer to access the internet, and a projector or a TV if possible. Before the lesson, the students must be able to know what main idea means and baseline knowledge of how to identify it. They must also be able to know what inferencing means and how to inference, and they must know how to write a proper letter, including the heading, body, and signature. On day 1, the teacher will create a KWL chart. The teacher will fill out the K and W with the students to assess what the students already know about MLK. This data can be used later on to alter lesson plans as needed. Afterwards, the teacher will show the video, The Story of Martin Luther King Jr. by Kid President as a hook. It's a great story. Then the students will add sticky notes to the L section to show what they've learned so far from the video. They'll be doing this throughout the week with things that they've learned. After the video, the teacher will read Freedom on the Menu to the students and then ask the students to determine the main idea of the story by doing a think, pair, share. The students must support their thoughts with details from the text when they're sharing. Afterwards, the teacher can call in a couple of students to share. The students will finally fill out the main idea worksheet independently using their own ideas or ideas learned from others during the think, pair, share. On day 2, the teacher will read Child of the Civil Rights Movement aloud to the students. Throughout the story, the teacher should be asking the students to use their inferencing skills to describe how the character was feeling. After reading the book, the teacher will turn back to page 6 and ask the students to rewrite and re-illustrate that page on their own. The students should be keeping in mind that they should be connecting the text to their illustrations. Also, they must keep in mind to have the illustrations match the time period. The teachers can use this to see the students' perceptions of the story. On day 3, the teacher will show the BrainPop video on MLK. Afterwards, the students will then use information learned in the past 3 days to construct a letter to write to the future President of the United States. The letter must include a question that asks him or her his or her plan for fighting discrimination. And it must include 3 examples and details of why that is important, using information from the Civil Rights Movement and a conclusion. I will know that my students have met the objectives by assessing the main idea worksheet, the students' recreation of page 6 showing emotions, and the letter to the future president. I will differentiate my instruction for my ELA students by having those students orally describe or tell me what they plan to write if the writing is too difficult for them. If the writing is not, I will be as strict on the grammatical and spelling errors during the writing portions of the different worksheets. I'll differentiate my instruction for my struggling students by not being as strict on grammatical and spelling errors during the writing portions of the different worksheets. I will differentiate my instruction for my students with identified learning disabilities by spending more time assessing the pictures and the stories as I read so that the students don't lose the focus of the story because they are trying to decode the words in the text. Well, I believe that covers the whole lesson plan. I really enjoyed your class, and I feel like I gained a lot of knowledge about social justice through literacy and how I can implement what I've learned in my own classroom. Thank you again for such a wonderful semester.